let's go to the chat and let me know, what is salsa dance, or how do you know it when you see it? This doesn't have to be a full sentence. It can just be a couple words or a few phrases. What do you think of when you think of salsa dance? Go ahead and take a moment. Cool. Okay, these are all great answers. Oh, and in your chat feature, if you want to message the whole group instead of direct messaging me, that would be great. That way everybody can see your answers. Okay, so I see lots of people saying use of the hips. It's very rhythmic, high energy, fast footwork. It's a Latin American community dance. That's a great answer. High energy. Perfect. These are all wonderful answers. So I'm going to sort of round out our understanding for a very general approach to salsa. So salsa is inextricably linked to salsa music. The dance and the music develop at the same time and in the same way. So when you study one, really you study the other. Yes, salsa is a partner dance. It's usually danced in place, meaning that people are not moving around the room quite a bit. There's one form of salsa called rueda where they do dance in a circle, but for the most part, you're going to see couples dancing in one place. Salsa is danced at all kinds of social gatherings, and it's a dance for people of all ages. Generally speaking, salsa dance stems from Cuban dances called the danzón and the son, which were influenced by both European and West African movement styles, starting around the year 1500. Really, the roots of this dance are in the violent cultural clash resulting from colonization and the slave trade. We can see the European influence in the upright posture and the couple formation, in which men and women are dancing together and touching each other as they dance. We see the African influence in the isolation of body parts, especially the hips, and the incorporation of multiple rhythms within the body. We call that polyrhythm. Oh, sorry, let me go back to this slide. So during this time, starting from like 1500 to about the late 1800s, the dancing that's happening is not named salsa dance. We don't get that name until really the beginning of the modern salsa movement, which happens in New York City in the 1960s and 70s. So there's a lot of Latin immigrant communities in New York City, a lot of especially Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, and Cubans. And during that time, especially Puerto Rican immigrants, they start using music and dance to really articulate the isolation and the poverty and the oppression they were experiencing. So this was a time when their neighborhoods were under social and economic siege. And during this time, salsa really functions as an expression of individual and communal identity. So through their music and dance, people were saying, I'm here, this is who I am. And it was really a challenge to the cultural dominance of white America. So the exuberance and the passion of salsa music and dance served as a soundtrack for their activism and their political consciousness. As time goes on, salsa transforms into a performance genre. We see it in floor shows and cabarets and competitions. And as audiences grow and become more diverse, salsa starts to become accepted and adopted by the middle class. And then we see record companies pop up and sell millions of albums. And soon salsa becomes a widespread metropolitan practice. In fact, it was transnational because it really easily blended with local music and dance forms. There's a dance scholar named Pietrobruno, and he says salsa came to signify a pan-Latin consciousness throughout the Americas. And then more time passes, and then in the 80s and 90s, salsa starts to become kind of a product for mass consumption. We see the music starting to lose its political edge because it's easier to market salsa when the lyrics are about love and sentimental reflections rather than politics. And the iteration of this style is called salsa romantica. You can tell by the album colors of the album covers, it's about romance, it's about love, it's about not wearing your shirt and wearing gold jewelry. It's less about like the political consciousness. So, and then with the technology boom of the 90s and beyond, salsa gets exported all over the world. People dance salsa on every continent. I've danced salsa in Egypt. I danced salsa in Java. I danced salsa, like you can find it anywhere, even in tiny remote towns. Usually there's a salsa night. We can see that salsa gets sort of presented like a commercialized product that's available for consumption by anyone at any time through TV, music, and internet. Salsa can be sort of used as a marketing tool to sell us products, to sell us an experience, or even try to sell us on the likability of Sean Spicer, which is an image, God, I will never forget this episode of Dancing with the Stars. So really, as time goes on, and today we can see that the intersection of globalization and capitalism have really changed the character of the salsa that we saw springing up in the 1960s and 70s, which means that today salsa kind of has two functions. The first is an expression of identity. It's a way of creating and reaffirming that communal and individual identity. And it's a cultural product for consumption. So looking at this circle on the left, it's pretty clear to see how this dance expresses and affirms identity. And then on the right, understanding salsa as a commodity, it does require a little bit more background than we have time to go into here, but you kind of get the idea as you see how salsa gets kind of manipulated by capitalism and turned into a product over time. Okay, so that's your general background on salsa.